The Velrath Empire had conquered 47 worlds in the past 1,000 years. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were large and black, perfect for seeing in the darkness of space. They believed themselves to be the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Commander Torvex stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Eternal Blade. He looked at the blue and green planet on his viewing screen. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It would soon belong to the Velrath Empire. "Commander," said his second officer, a young Velrath named Draxus, "I have found something strange in the old records." Torvex did not turn around. He kept his eyes on the planet called Earth. "What is it?" "This world has a warning label from the Galactic Survey. It is marked as a Class 15 death world." Draxus sounded worried. The survey was done 3,000 years ago, but the warning was never removed. Torvex laughed. It was a cold sound that echoed through the bridge. "Class 15? That is impossible. Look at that world. It has water. It has green land. It looks like paradise. The report says the planet has extreme conditions." Draxus continued reading from his screen. "High gravity. Dangerous levels of radiation from its star. The atmosphere contains a gas that causes fires. The native life forms are described as highly aggressive. 3,000 years ago," Torvex said with annoyance. "That survey is ancient history. Our scanning equipment is much better now. I see no threats on that world. I see only a planet full of weak creatures who have barely discovered space travel." Draxus wanted to argue, but he knew better. Commander Torvex had led many successful invasions. He was not a leader who listened to warnings. On the surface of Earth, in a city called Sol, a young soldier named Tay was finishing his night shift. He worked at a small military base on the edge of the city. His job was to watch the radar screens and report anything unusual. It had been a quiet night. Tay was tired and ready to go home. He thought about the breakfast his mother would make for him. She always waited for him after his night shifts. His squad leader, a woman named Hannah, walked into the radar room with 2 cups of coffee. She was older than Tay by 5 years and had served in the military for almost a decade. Her short black hair was always neat, and her uniform was always perfect. "Anything interesting?" she asked, handing him a cup. Tay shook his head. "Nothing. Same as always." Hannah sat down next to him and looked at the screens. "I heard strange reports from other bases tonight. People seeing lights in the sky. Probably just satellites or planes." "Probably," Tay agreed. He took a sip of his coffee. It was hot and bitter, just the way he liked it. Then his screen made a sound, a small beeping noise that Tay had never heard before. He looked at the radar and saw something that made his heart stop. "Squad leader," he said quietly. "You need to see this." Hannah leaned closer to the screen. Her eyes went wide. There were objects in the sky. Many objects. They were not planes. They were not satellites. They were something else entirely. "How many?" she whispered. Tay counted quickly. "At least 50. And they are getting closer." Above the Earth, Commander Torvex gave the order to begin the invasion. His 50 warships moved into position around the planet. Each ship carried thousands of Velrath soldiers, all trained for conquest. "Send the message to all ships," Torvex commanded. "We land at dawn on the largest population centers. Take prisoners if possible. Kill anyone who resists." Draxus watched his commander with growing worry. Something felt wrong about this invasion. The Class 15 warning kept repeating in his mind. No planet received such a high rating without good reason. "Commander," he said one more time, "perhaps we should send a small team first, to test the conditions." Torvex finally turned to look at his second officer. His black eyes showed no patience. "Are you afraid, Draxus? Have you forgotten who we are? We are Velrath. We have conquered worlds that were defended by armies of millions. This little planet with its primitive weapons is nothing to us." "I am not afraid," Draxus said carefully. "I am cautious. The old ones who made that survey were not fools. They marked this world as dangerous for a reason." Torvex stepped closer to Draxus. His forearms were crossed over his chest. The old ones were weak. They saw a planet with some large animals and some bad weather, and they ran away scared. We are not like them. We will take this world in 3 days. Back on Earth, alarms were now ringing at every military base around the world. Governments were receiving reports of unknown objects in the sky. People were waking up to news that would change their lives forever. Tay and Hana were ordered to stay at their base. More soldiers arrived within the hour. Officers ran around, shouting orders that nobody seemed to understand. The whole world was trying to figure out what was happening. "Do you think it is real?" Tay asked Hana. They stood outside. Looking up at the night sky, they could see lights moving between the stars, lights that were getting bigger. Hana did not answer for a long moment. She was a soldier who had trained for many things: war with other countries, natural disasters, terrorist attacks. But she had never trained for this. "I do not know what it is," she finally said. "But I know one thing. Whatever is coming, they chose the wrong planet." Tay looked at his squad leader. "How do you know that?" Hana smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "Because humans do not give up. We never have. We fight storms and earthquakes and diseases. We survived ice ages and floods. If something comes here looking for an easy target, they will learn very quickly that they made a mistake." The first Velrath ships entered Earth's atmosphere just as the sun began to rise over Sol. They came down like falling stars, bright and terrible against the morning sky. Commander Torvex watched from his warship with satisfaction. His soldiers would be on the ground within minutes. The conquest of Earth would begin. He did not notice the warning light on Draxus's screen. He did not see the report showing that 12 soldiers had already collapsed from breathing Earth's air. He did not know that the nightmare was just beginning. The perfect invasion had started. But the Velrath had forgotten to read the fine print on Earth's Class 15 Deathworld alert. And by the time they understood their mistake, it would be far too late. The Velrath landing ships touched down in 12 major cities across Earth. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They expected the weak humans to fall on their knees and beg for mercy. What they got was something very different. The first problem came within seconds of opening their ship doors. The air hit them like a punch to the face. It was thick and heavy, and filled with things they could not see. Bacteria, viruses, pollen, millions of tiny living things that the Velrath immune systems had never encountered. Soldier Krevax was one of the first to step onto Earth's soil. He took 3 steps and then fell to his knees, coughing violently. His forearms grabbed at his throat as he struggled to breathe. "What is happening?" shouted his commander through the communication device. "Report." But Krevax could not report. He was too busy trying to survive the simple act of breathing Earth's air. In Sol, the Velrath landing site was in a large park near the city center. 50 alien soldiers had landed there, expecting to quickly take control of the area. Within 10 minutes, 15 of them were on the ground, sick from the air and the bacteria it carried. Tay watched through his binoculars from a building 3 blocks away. Hana stood next to him, speaking quickly into her radio. "They are falling down," Tay said with amazement. "Nobody has fired a single shot, and they are already falling down." Hana finished her radio call and took the binoculars from him. She watched the aliens stumbling around their ship, clearly confused and scared. "The air," she said. "They cannot handle our air." "What do we do?" Tay asked. "We wait. We watch. And we learn." Commander Torvex received reports from all 12 landing sites. Every single one told the same story. His soldiers were getting sick. The planet's atmosphere was attacking them from the inside. "Impossible," he growled at Draxus. "How can air make us sick?" Draxus was reading the medical reports as fast as they came in. "The oxygen levels are much higher than we expected. Our lungs are not built for this, and there are billions of microscopic creatures in every breath. Our bodies have no defense against them." "Then give them medicine. Give them protective suits. Fix this problem." "We are trying, Commander. But we do not have enough supplies. We did not expect to need them. Because you ignored the warning, Draxus thought but did not say. On the ground in Seoul, things were getting worse for the Velrath soldiers. The morning sun was rising higher, and with it came the heat. The temperature climbed from cool to warm to uncomfortable within hours. The Velrath came from a cold world. Their bodies were designed for temperatures that humans would call freezing. The Korean summer morning felt like standing inside a fire to them. Soldier Morvax pulled at his armor, trying to let air reach his skin. His gray body was turning a dark purple from the heat. Sweat poured from him in rivers. He had never sweated before in his life. "I cannot take this," he gasped to the soldier next to him. "This planet is trying to kill us." Before his companion could answer, something small landed on Morvax's arm. He looked down and saw a tiny creature with wings. It was a mosquito. On his homeworld, there was nothing like it. He watched with confusion as the tiny creature pushed something into his skin. "What is this?" he asked, more curious than worried. He would learn the answer 3 days later, when the malaria began. But by then, he would already be dead from a dozen other causes. Hana decided it was time to move closer. She led Tay and a small team of soldiers toward the alien landing site. They moved carefully, using buildings and cars for cover. The aliens did not see them coming. They were too busy dealing with their own problems. More than half of them were now lying on the ground, sick or dying. The ones still standing looked weak and confused. Hana raised her rifle and took aim at the nearest alien. Her finger touched the trigger, but something made her stop. "Squad leader," Tay whispered. "What are you waiting for?" Hana lowered her weapon slowly. "Look at them, Tay. Really look at them. They are dying. Our planet is killing them without our help." It was true. The aliens were suffering in ways that seemed almost cruel. The gravity was too strong for their bodies. The sunlight burned their sensitive skin. The air made them cough and choke. Insects bit them constantly. The heat drained their energy. One alien was lying near a small pond in the park. He had crawled there looking for water. When he drank from it, he did not know that the water was full of bacteria that would destroy his stomach within hours. "This is not a fair fight," Tay said quietly. Hana shook her head. "No, it is not. But they came here to conquer us. They came here to take our home. I do not feel sorry for them." She raised her radio to her lips. "This is Squad Leader Hana. The aliens at the Seoul landing site are combat ineffective. Repeat. They are combat ineffective. The environment is doing our job for us. Requesting orders." The response came quickly. "Hold your position. Observe and report. Do not engage unless necessary." So they waited and watched as Earth continued its silent war against the invaders. By noon, the Velrath had learned about rain. A summer storm rolled over Seoul, dropping water from the sky like a waterfall. The aliens had never experienced such heavy rain. Their equipment was not waterproof in the way Earth technology was. Their weapons sparked and failed. Their communication devices stopped working, and the rain itself was not clean. It was slightly acidic, as most Earth rain was. To human skin, it was nothing. To Velrath skin, it was like being touched by weak fire over and over again. Commander Torvex watched the disaster unfold from his ship in orbit. His invasion was failing, and no human had fired a single weapon yet. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We have conquered worlds defended by armies of millions. We have defeated enemies with technology far beyond these humans. And we are losing to weather and insects?" Draxus stood nearby, no longer trying to hide his frustration. "I told you, Commander. I warned you about the Class 15 rating. This world is not meant for life like ours. Everything on this planet is designed to kill things that do not belong here. Then we will adapt," Torvex said stubbornly. "We will find a way." But even as he spoke, more reports came in. Losses at every landing site. Soldiers dying from heat and disease, and 100 other causes. The invasion was collapsing before it had truly begun. In Seoul, Hana and her team finally moved in as the rain stopped. The surviving aliens were too weak to fight. They surrendered without resistance. One alien, younger than the others, looked up at Hana with its large black eyes. It was shaking with fever and fear. "How?" it asked in broken human language. "How do you survive this world?" Hana knelt down next to the dying creature. For a moment, she felt something like pity. "We did not choose this world," she said. "This world chose us. And it made us strong enough to call it home." The alien closed its eyes and did not open them again. Tay stood beside his squad leader, looking at the fallen invaders. "Is it over?" Hana looked up at the sky, where more alien ships still floated among the clouds. "No," she said. "This was only the first wave. There will be more. But now we know something important." "What is that?" "They are not invincible. They are not gods. They are just visitors to a world that does not want them here." She stood up and checked her weapon. And visitors who do not read the warning signs always learn their lesson the hard way. 3 days had passed since the first landing. Commander Torvex had lost more than half of his invasion force without a single proper battle. The survivors were huddled inside their ships, afraid to go outside. The reports kept coming, each one worse than the last. In a country called Brazil, a group of 30 Velrath soldiers had tried to march through something called a rainforest. Only 2 made it out alive. The plants had thorns that cut through their armor. The insects attacked in swarms of thousands. The humidity made their lungs fill with water, and something called a jaguar had killed 5 of them in a single night. In a place called Australia, the Velrath had encountered creatures that seemed designed by madness itself. Snakes with venom that stopped hearts, spiders that hid in dark corners, jellyfish that floated in the water like beautiful death. The soldiers there had given up within 36 hours. In Africa, the heat had cooked them inside their own armor. In Russia, the cold had frozen them solid when the sun went down. In Japan, something called an earthquake had destroyed their landing site without any human involvement at all. "This planet is alive," Draxus said to his commander, "and it does not want us here." Torvex sat in his command chair, his 4 arms hanging loosely at his sides. For the first time in his long career, he looked defeated. How did the humans survive this? How did any creature survive this? "They evolved here," Draxus answered, "over millions of years. The planet tested them, and killed them, and tested them again. Only the strongest survived. Only the most adaptable lived long enough to have children. The humans are not weak, Commander. They are the toughest creatures this death world could create." In Seoul, Hana and Tay were part of a search team moving through the city. Their mission was to find any surviving aliens and bring them in for questioning. The military wanted to learn everything they could about the invaders. They found most of the aliens already dead. Disease had spread through their ranks like wildfire. The bacteria and viruses of Earth had found new hosts, and those hosts had no way to fight back. But they also found survivors. Scared, sick aliens who had hidden inside buildings, trying to escape the sun and the rain and the million tiny deaths that waited outside. Tay found one hiding in a basement. It was a young Velrath, maybe the equivalent of a teenager in human years. Its gray skin was covered in bites and rashes. Its breathing was rough and wet. "Squad leader," Tay called out. "I found a live one." Hana came down the stairs quickly. She knelt beside the alien and looked at its condition. It was dying, that much was clear. But it might live long enough to answer some questions. "Can you understand me?" she asked slowly. The alien's black eyes focused on her face. It nodded weakly. "Yes. I learned your language from captured broadcasts." "Good. I need you to tell me something. Are more of you coming?" The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was bitter and sad. "More?" "Yes. Many more. The main fleet is coming. 1,000 ships. 1,000,000 soldiers." Tay and Hana looked at each other with worry. 1,000,000 soldiers. Even if Earth's environment killed most of them. That was still a massive threat. "When?" Hana demanded. "When will they arrive?" "Soon. Perhaps 10 of your days. Perhaps less." The alien coughed, and dark fluid came from its mouth. But it will not matter. They will die too. This world will kill them, just as it killed us. Hana grabbed the alien's arm. Tell me more. Tell me about your weaknesses. Tell me how we can fight you. The alien looked at her with something like respect in its dying eyes. You do not need to fight us. You just need to survive. Time and your world will do the rest. It paused, struggling to breathe. We thought we were the hunters. We did not know we were walking into the den of a greater predator. What do you mean? Your planet, your sun, your air and water and weather. They are all predators. And you, humans? The alien's voice became a whisper. You are the apex predators of a predator world. You evolved to survive the unsurvivable. You are more dangerous than anything we have ever encountered. The alien's eyes closed, and its breathing stopped. Hana let go of its arm and stood up slowly. Did you hear that? Tay asked. 1,000,000 soldiers, I heard. Hana's mind was racing. They had 10 days, maybe less. 10 days to prepare for an army unlike anything humanity had ever faced. But she also heard what the alien had said about humans, about being apex predators, about surviving the unsurvivable. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt something like hope. Commander Torvex received the news of the main fleet's approach with mixed feelings. On one hand, he desperately needed reinforcements. On the other hand, bringing more soldiers to this death world felt like feeding them to a monster. We must warn them, Draxus insisted. We must tell them what we have learned. They need to bring better equipment, better medicine, better protection. And admit that I failed? Torvex growled. Never. Commander, if we do not warn them, they will die. All of them. This is not about pride anymore. This is about survival. Torvex stood up from his chair and walked to the viewing screen. Earth hung there in the darkness of space, beautiful and terrible. He had wanted to conquer it so badly. He had wanted to add it to his list of victories. Now he understood that some worlds could not be conquered. Some worlds conquered you. Send the warning, he said finally. Tell them everything. Tell them about the air and the heat and the insects and the diseases. Tell them about the gravity and the radiation and the weather. Tell them that this world has been killing us since the moment we arrived. Draxus quickly began preparing the message. But even as he worked, he wondered if it would matter. The main fleet commander was even more proud than Torvex. Would he listen to warnings about a primitive planet? On Earth, Hana reported her findings to the military leadership. Within hours, the news spread to every government on the planet. 1,000,000 alien soldiers were coming. The first wave had been just a test. The real invasion was about to begin. But something unexpected happened. Instead of panic, humans responded with determination. Scientists worked around the clock to study the dead aliens and find more weaknesses. Engineers designed new weapons based on what they had learned. Doctors developed biological agents that would be even more deadly to the Velrath immune systems. And ordinary people prepared to fight. Farmers and teachers and office workers lined up at military bases, asking how they could help. The aliens had come to conquer humanity. Instead, they had united it. Tay stood with Hana on the roof of their base, watching the sunset. In 10 days, their world might end, or it might survive. There was no way to know. Are you scared? He asked. Hana thought about the question. Yes, she admitted, but I am also proud. Proud of what we are. Proud of what our planet made us. The alien said we are apex predators. Yes, and it is time we showed the galaxy what that means. She turned away from the sunset and headed back inside. There was work to do. In 10 days, 1,000,000 aliens would arrive, expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they would find Earth waiting for them, and Earth had never been kind to visitors who came uninvited. The main fleet arrived on the 9th day. 1,000 ships filled the sky like a dark cloud. Inside those ships were 1,000,000 Velrath soldiers, all ready to succeed where the first wave had failed. Fleet Commander Zorvax had received the warnings from Torvex. He had read every report about the diseases and the heat and the dangerous environment, and he had dismissed all of it. Torvex was always weak, he told his officers. He failed because he was not prepared. We will not make the same mistakes. His soldiers came equipped with sealed suits and filtered air and temperature control systems. They carried medicine and disinfectants and protective gear for every possible situation. Zorvax believed he had thought of everything. He had not thought of the humans. On the ground, Hana received new orders from High Command. The aliens had built a communication tower outside Seoul during the first invasion. This tower was how they contacted their ships in orbit. If that tower was destroyed, the aliens on the ground would be cut off from support. We need a team to reach that tower, the general told her through the radio. Your team. 1. Hana looked at Tae and the other soldiers under her command. They were tired and scared. They had already seen more death in the past 9 days than most soldiers saw in a lifetime, but they also nodded when she looked at them. They were ready. We will do it, she told the general. Send us the location. The tower was 15 kilometers outside the city, in a valley surrounded by hills. The aliens had chosen the spot because it gave them good coverage for their signals. They had not chosen it because it was easy to defend. Hana studied the maps carefully. The valley was accessed by 2 main roads. Both roads would be watched by alien soldiers. But there was another way in, a hiking trail through the forest that wrapped around the hills. They will not expect us from that direction, she told her team. The forest is too dangerous for them. They cannot handle the terrain or the wildlife. Tae understood what she was saying. But we can. Yes, we grew up on this planet. We know its dangers. We know how to survive them. That is our advantage. They left at midnight. 12 soldiers moving quietly through the darkness. The summer night was hot and humid, but none of them complained. They had lived through worse. The forest was alive with sounds. Insects sang their endless songs. Night birds called to each other. Small animals moved through the undergrowth, hunting and being hunted. To the Velrath, these sounds would have been terrifying. To the humans, they were just the normal music of Earth. They reached the edge of the valley just before dawn. From their hiding spot in the trees, they could see the alien tower rising against the lightning sky. It was a tall structure made of metal and crystal, pulsing with strange lights. Surrounding the tower were dozens of alien soldiers. They stood in neat rows, their sealed suits making them look like robots. Their weapons were ready. Their eyes scanned the 2 roads constantly. None of them looked toward the forest. I count 60 guards, Tae whispered. Maybe more inside the tower. Hana nodded. 60 against 12. Those were bad odds in a normal fight. But this would not be a normal fight. We do not need to kill them all, she said. We just need to destroy that tower. And I have an idea. She explained her plan quickly. It was simple and dangerous, and relied on everything they knew about their enemy's weaknesses. First, they would wait for the sun to rise higher. The morning heat would make the aliens uncomfortable inside their sealed suits. Their reaction time would slow. Their attention would wander. Second, they would use the environment. Tae and 3 others would circle around to the far side of the valley, where a stream flowed down from the hills. They would dam the stream and then release it, creating a flash flood that would sweep through the valley. Third, when the flood hit and the aliens were confused, the rest of the team would attack the tower directly. It is risky, one soldier said. Everything is risky, Hana replied. But we have something they do not. We have home field advantage. They moved into position as the sun climbed higher. The temperature rose steadily. Inside their sealed suits, the Velrath soldiers began to suffer. The temperature control systems worked hard, but could not keep up with the Korean summer heat. Tae and his group reached the stream without being detected. It was a small waterway, but it had been raining heavily for the past week. The water level was high, perfect for what they needed. They worked quickly, piling rocks and logs to create a temporary dam. The water began to build up behind it. growing deeper and more powerful by the minute. "Ready," Tay reported through his radio. "Just give the word." Hana watched the alien guards. They were shifting uncomfortably now. Some of them had opened parts of their suits to let in air, forgetting the dangers. Others were drinking water from their supplies, already running low. She waited until the sun was directly overhead. Maximum heat. Maximum discomfort. "Now," she said. Tay and his team broke the dam. The water exploded forward, rushing down the hillside toward the valley. It gathered strength as it went, picking up rocks and mud and debris. The flood hit the alien camp like a fist. Soldiers were knocked off their feet. Equipment was swept away. The carefully organized defense collapsed into chaos within seconds. "Move!" Hana shouted. Her team charged down from the trees. They fired as they ran, picking off aliens who were struggling to stand in the rushing water. The Velroth tried to fight back, but their weapons were wet, and their balance was gone. Hana reached the tower first. The door was locked with some kind of electronic seal. She did not waste time trying to open it. Instead, she pulled out a block of explosives and attached it to the base of the structure. "Everyone back!" she yelled. The explosion tore through the tower's supports. The whole structure groaned and then began to tilt. It fell slowly at first, then faster, crashing into the muddy ground with a sound like thunder. The communication link to the orbiting fleet was broken. In orbit, Fleet Commander Zorvax stared at his screen with disbelief. Contact with the ground forces had been lost. The tower that took months to build had been destroyed in minutes. "How?" he demanded. "How did they do this?" His officers had no answers. They had watched the attack through satellite cameras. They had seen a small group of humans use water and terrain to defeat 60 trained soldiers. It should have been impossible, but nothing about this planet made sense. On the ground, Hana gathered her team and began the retreat. They had completed their mission. The tower was destroyed. The aliens were cut off. Behind them, surviving Velrath soldiers crawled through the mud, too weak and confused to give chase. The floodwaters had soaked through their damaged suits. Earth's bacteria were already beginning their work. "We did it," Tay said, almost unable to believe it. Hana allowed herself a small smile. "Yes, but this is just one battle. The war is not over yet." She looked up at the sky where alien ships still floated among the clouds. There were still hundreds of thousands of enemy soldiers up there, still enough to destroy humanity if they found a way to survive Earth's defenses. But for today, the humans had won. For today, they had shown the galaxy what it meant to fight on a death world. And somewhere in the wreckage of the fallen tower, an alien soldier took his last breath, still wondering how such primitive creatures could be so deadly. He would never understand. He had never read the warning label. He had never learned that on a Class 15 death world, everything was a weapon, including the ones who called it home. 1 month after the invasion began, Fleet Commander Zorvax made a decision that no Velrath leader had ever made before. He ordered the retreat. Of the 1 million soldiers he had brought to Earth, fewer than 50,000 remained alive. The rest had died from disease, heat, cold, floods, earthquakes, animal attacks, and 100 other causes that no military training could prepare them for. And those were just the ones killed by the planet itself. The humans had killed many more. They had fought with everything they had. Rifles and tanks and missiles. Traps and poisons and diseases designed specifically to target Velrath biology. They had flooded valleys and started fires and used every feature of their deadly world as a weapon. But worse than all of that was their refusal to give up. They should have surrendered, Zorvax said to Draxus, who had somehow survived both the first wave and the main invasion. When they saw our numbers, they should have known they could not win. Draxus looked out the viewing window at Earth, the beautiful nightmare that had destroyed their invasion. They did not think they could not win. They never considered surrender as an option. Why? How can any creature be that stubborn? Because this is their home. Draxus turned to face the fleet commander. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Giving up means death. Fighting means a chance to survive. It is built into their very nature. They cannot surrender. They do not know how. On the surface of Earth, Hana and Tay watched the alien ships begin to rise from the ground. After weeks of fighting, the invaders were finally leaving. All around Seoul, people came out of their shelters to watch the retreat. There was no celebration. Not yet. The cost had been too high. Millions of humans had died in the invasion. Cities had been damaged. Families had been destroyed. The victory felt hollow in many ways, but they had survived. Against impossible odds, against technology far beyond their own, against an enemy that had conquered 47 worlds, humanity had survived. "Look at them run," a young soldier said, his voice bitter. "They came here thinking we would be easy prey." Hana shook her head slowly. "Do not hate them. They did not understand what they were facing. How could they? Nothing in the galaxy prepared them for a world like ours. They killed my family," the soldier replied. Hana had no answer for that. She had lost people too. Everyone had lost someone in this war. The wounds would take generations to heal, but she also knew something important. This was not the end. The Velrath would go back to their empire and tell stories about Earth. Other species would hear those stories. Some would be smart enough to stay away. Others might be curious enough to come looking. Humanity was no longer hidden in a quiet corner of the galaxy. They had announced themselves to the universe, and the universe was watching. In orbit, Zorvax prepared his final report. It would be sent to every world in the Velrath Empire. It would be shared with every ally and trading partner. It would become a warning that would echo through the galaxy for centuries. He began to dictate. Planet designation, Earth. Local name, Sol 3. Previous classification, Class 15. Death World. New recommended classification, Class 20. Death World. Highest possible rating. The native species calls itself human. They appear physically weak compared to most spacefaring races. They have only 2 arms, soft skin, and limited natural weapons. Initial assessment suggested easy conquest. This assessment was catastrophically wrong. The planet itself is hostile to all non-native life. Gravity is heavy. The sun produces dangerous radiation. The atmosphere contains aggressive bacteria and viruses that attack foreign biology within minutes. The weather is violent and unpredictable. The animal life ranges from annoying to deadly. But the planet is not the true danger. The true danger is the humans themselves. They evolved on this death world. They survived its gravity and radiation and diseases and predators. Every generation, only the strongest and most adaptable, lived long enough to reproduce. This process created beings of remarkable resilience and determination. When faced with our superior technology and numbers, they did not surrender. They did not negotiate. They fought with every resource available to them. They used their planet as a weapon. They adapted to our tactics faster than we could create new ones. More importantly, they refused to accept defeat. Even when the odds were impossible, they continued fighting. This psychological trait appears to be fundamental to their species. They simply do not give up. Recommendation: avoid Earth completely. Do not invade. Do not colonize. Do not make enemies of the humans. If they ever develop faster than light travel, recommend immediate diplomatic relations and non-aggression treaties. The humans call their home a pale blue dot. A small, insignificant world in a quiet corner of the galaxy. They are wrong about its insignificance. Earth is a factory. A factory that has spent 4 billion years building the most dangerous creatures in the known universe. And those creatures have just learned that they are not alone. May the stars have mercy on any who threaten them. Zorvax ended the recording and transmitted it to the Velrath home world. Then he ordered his remaining ships to leave orbit and begin the long journey home. On Earth, Tay stood with Hana one last time, watching the alien fleet disappear into the darkness of space. The night sky looked the same as it always had, stars twinkling peacefully, the moon glowing softly. It was hard to believe that so much had changed. What happens now? Tay asked. Hana thought about the question. Now we rebuild, we heal, we learn from what happened, and then we get ready. She looked up at the stars with new eyes. They know about us now. The whole galaxy knows. Some will want to be our friends. Some will want to be our enemies, and some will want to see for themselves if the stories are true. Tay nodded slowly. So we prepare. Yes. We prepare. Hana smiled. And this time, there was real hope in it. But we also remember something important. We survived. Against everything the universe threw at us, we survived. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because we never stopped trying. She turned away from the sky and started walking back toward the city. There was so much work to do. Rebuilding. Mourning. Planning for the future. The path ahead would be long and hard, but humans had always walked hard paths. It was what they were built for. Behind her, the last alien ship vanished among the stars, carrying stories that would make the galaxy tremble. Stories about a small blue world and the creatures that called it home. Stories about a Class 15 death world that turned out to be something far more dangerous. Stories about humans. In the years that followed, Earth joined the galactic community. They made allies and enemies. They explored new worlds and discovered new wonders. They built an empire that spanned 100 star systems, and everywhere they went, they brought the lessons of their homeworld with them. Never give up. Never surrender. Fight for what you love. With everything you have. The Velroth eventually became one of humanity's closest allies. They understood, better than anyone, what humans were capable of. They had learned the hard way what happened when you underestimated the creatures from the pale blue dot. And on every star map in the galaxy, Earth remained marked with the highest possible warning. Class 20 Death World. Do not approach without invitation. But those warnings always came with an additional note, added by a Velrath commander who had lost almost everything to learn a simple truth. The planet is dangerous, but the real threat is the ones who call it home. They are small and soft and short-lived, and they are the most terrifying creatures in the known universe, because they do not just survive their death world, they love it.